All right, Sort of Sports Podcast, episode 206. And I did an episode in the late stages of 2024. So, little over a year ago, about, that'd be 16 months? Is that how that works? Yeah. It feels like 2024 if I say that, it feels like a while ago. But in reality, it wasn't a full 2 years ago, unless it was like spring of 2024. And it was not. Titled the Bradley Cooper episode. And now you're wondering, okay, so we titled this, probably going to title this one something like the Jacob Elordi episode or something like that, because Jacob Elordi is a very interesting actor to me. And I had a lot of thoughts I wanted to get off my chest, because CinemaCon has probably already happened by the time you've watched this episode. I am recording this on Sunday, April 12th. This episode should be out some point, I think, this weekend. So it's going to come out a few days later. And so maybe some things have changed. Maybe some casting news has come out about different actors. Maybe there's a Clayface trailer by the time you see this. If so, very excited about that. Might be recording an episode on that. Maybe we've heard more about Beyond the Spider-Verse or Sony's future plans for Spider-Man. There's a couple things. Sony and Warner Brothers are really interested to see what they do this week. But regardless, let's move on from that. I wanted to talk to you about Jacob Elordi because if you're not aware, and I don't remember if I've talked about this in the show in the past or not, I used to be kind of a pretty big hater of Jacob Elordi. I was pretty out on him. I felt like he was just getting cast in big roles, and for a lot of things that I'm like, isn't he just the hot guy from Kissing Booth? And like, I knew he was in Euphoria, and I know people said he was good in that, but I really didn't give a shit about him. And I thought when he tried out for Superman, I was petrified. There was no one I wanted Superman to be less than Jacob Elordi, and I still maintain that would have been bad casting. Okay, but about a year ago, Genevieve and I did a draft where we each drafted actors under 35 years of age, and the goal was to try to build a team that would, be the top movie stars in the future. I ended up drafting Jacob Elordi because, well, it was good value at where I had him, and I really didn't want him on my team, but that was the way it went. I jokingly said, well, now I have to root for him. And to be honest, I was still hating on him at that time. But then I saw Frankenstein. And I know you're like, Ryan, you watched Frankenstein back in October. Yes, I did. Or maybe it was November, regardless. But since then, I've thought about it a lot. And I'm like, I think him and Austin Butler are very similar. And what I mean by that is, Austin Butler and him are both actors that are, people have crushes on, very handsome actors, right? But they both want to be Brad Pitt. They both want to be the handsome actor that's got a little bit of edge to him. That can, because that's the thing with Brad Pitt, is Brad Pitt nowadays plays a lot of everyman roles. But in the past, he really had that edge to him. You think about Seven, you think about Fight Club. He's got an edge to him. You could even argue like Meet Joe Black. He's got an edge to him. Right? He can also play the cool, slick guy in Ocean's 11, but he can turn around and do something very intense and, have a, like, whoa, this guy might be able to kill someone with his bare hands. Have that edge to him. And I think Austin Butler, if you look at him and Elordi's career, it's very similar. And I'm not just saying that because they both played Elvis. But I'm saying they're both, like, pretty boy actors that kind of take off around the same time. Elordi had a little more juice, I would say, because he was coming off of Euphoria and, in 2022, Austin Butler gets Elvis, big hit movie, really puts him on the map. Everybody's like, ooh, one of our next top stars. And in 2023, Elordi does an Elvis movie. Obviously, it's Priscilla, very different film, nowhere near as big of a hit, but still a film where he played Elvis. Then the next major film for Austin Butler was Dune Part 2. And what's he doing? He's playing a psycho killer, right? And then that summer, he does Bike Riders, a movie I really like, where he plays a cool, pretty guy with, say it with me, a bit of an edge, right? And so Austin Butler really trying to convince us all that, like, yes, he's a good-looking dude, but he can have an edge to him, right? And then last year, what was Austin Butler's movie? Caught Stealing, a movie that, did you see that movie? Well, yeah, no one did. But it was like kind of more like a dirty crime thriller. And it really wasn't successful, but Austin Butler really trying to convince us that he's not just pretty boy Austin Butler. And I think he was great as Fade Rather. I fully do. I think he was great in Dune Part 2. Really liked him in Bike Riders. But I don't know if I fully buy him as having that sort of edge I think he wants us to believe he has. And then you go over to Elordi, and it's like he's just done a lot of weird shit where he's got an edge to him. And I think he wants to be able to be the pretty boy with an edge. I think he's done a very good job of building his career like that. So I low-key think he snatched Austin Butler's chain. I think at this point, he is fully above Austin Butler in the top actors rankings. I really do. And part of the reason I thought about this episode is because I was listening to Sean Fennessy and Amanda Dobbins on The Ringer at the Big Picture Show. They did an episode of their top 35 actors under 35. I might have some disagreements with the list. One of them being Millie Bobby Brown at 5. Like, I think they're grossly overestimating how much kids my age or younger like Millie Bobby Brown. Like, people don't really like Millie Bobby Brown that much in general. I don't think she has that much motion, but whatever. They put Elordi at 6 and Butler at 10. And I agree with Elordi above Butler, and I just think Butler's at a weird crossroads in his career. He's a few years older than Jacob Elordi, and the big thing for Butler is going to be he's going to be in the Miami Vice movie next year, which I fully anticipate being a massive success. Fully anticipate that. And especially with Michael B. Jordan coming off the Oscar win, it's going to be big. I still wish it was Glen Powell. I really do, but it's fine. I can get over it. I'll try to get over it. But it's going to be Butler. And then he's most likely going to be in Heat 2 as Chris Shiverless, which I think would be really fun. I think it's great casting. Would really love for him to be Chris. Then you look over at Elordi, and his next movie is going to be Ridley Scott's The Dog Stars, which I'm probably just going to see. Because at this point, Elordi might just be one of my guys. And I've kind of become a big fan of his, because what impresses me about him is I want you to take yourself back to... Also, if you're my Uncle Travis listening to this, you probably have zero clue what's happening. And so I apologize to you. You're probably very confused with what's going on. If you skipped this episode, I don't blame you. There's a lot going on for you. But anyways, the thing that's interesting about Elordi is you go back to when he first took off. It was in The Kissing Booth on Netflix. A movie that sucks, right? I don't like that movie at all. I don't like it. It's bad movie. But regardless, right? Huge success, okay? And what did he do from there? Because there's a world where he could have been like, okay, well, I got that under my belt. I could make Netflix rom-com movies and make a decent amount of money the rest of my life. I can just be the hot guy in a Netflix movie. Genuinely what Noah Centineo did, right? Noah Centineo basically was like, I'm just the Netflix rom-com guy, and that kind of ran out of juice for him, and now I don't know what the hell Noah Centineo is really going to do with himself. But, him and Centineo were on similar paths, right? And Elordi gets the Euphoria job, where obviously I don't watch Euphoria. The only reason I would be for my guy Jacob Elordi, but even then, like, that seems like a lot for me that I don't think I'd like it. But anyways, he does that, and everybody's like, oh, he's really good at acting in this, which is great. And what I really respect about him is he could have just went the Netflix rom-com attractive guy thing, but he decided that he thought he was Timothée Chalamet. And I have nothing but respect for somebody that looks in the mirror and is like, I want to be excellent. That's what I always respect about my guy Chalamet, is he wants to be the best. He wants to be Leonardo DiCaprio of this generation. He wants to be the top actor. He wants to be the first phone call for a top movie. He wants to be that guy. And I think it's really cool that Elordi wants to be that guy. And I think that continually impresses me about the choices he's making. And so his next film, right, he's working with Ridley Scott. He's the lead. And I think that's excellent for dude. I think he's 28 or 29. Under 30. Leading Ridley Scott film. We'll see if it's any good, right? It's not like Ridley Scott's bangs out bangers every time. I mean, Ridley Scott has missed. I like Gladiator 2. Didn't really do that well, right? And I think it's interesting because he went with Paul Mescal as his guy for Gladiator 2. And Paul Mescal was a guy right there where he had a moment where it was like, is Paul Mescal going to be a top movie star? I think Paul Mescal has motion. I think people like Paul Mescal. But Paul Mescal has not become a movie star in the way I think you would have predicted maybe a few years back, right? Hamnet, he is not the most talked about person from Hamnet. It's Jesse Buckley. And is Hamnet going to make him a movie star? Probably not, right? So I think it's interesting, what what actors are going to hit, what ones aren't. And I just think I look at Elordi and I think I have a lot of faith in his career because he's kind of showed us he can do weird shit. Now I'm worried, can he play a normal person? Can he just be a guy? Can he be a normal guy? And I know you're like, whoa. Wouldn't you want these more intense roles? If you're just the guy who takes intense roles all the time, if you can't just be like a dude, I do think that limits some of the work you can do. Because that's always the thing Brad Pitt's been very good about. Like, Brad Pitt could also just be Billy Bean in Moneyball. Just be a guy. I think Christian Bale sometimes gets caught up a little bit in just doing extreme stuff. Then he started taking more stuff where he's like in Ford vs. Ferrari, he's a guy, right? So I look at it and I think to myself, can he be a guy? And so let's go back to the Superman thing. What I find so interesting now, looking back on Jacob Elordi trying out for Superman, is he's trying to do something different. That is not the type of thing he usually does. So to me, that shows that he is aware of what his brand is right now and that he wants to expand. He wants to show people he can do something else. Because playing Superman, especially in the James Gunn script, that's, a smiley, bright, blue-eyed, good person. Like, I love David Cornsweet's performance. He was perfect for it. I 100% think he was the right move. I think Elordi would have been bad casting. But the fact that he tried out is interesting. And I've been campaigning for a while that if they're going to do a different Batman for the DCU, I fully think it should be Elordi. Because as much as I love the fact, and I've said about it before on this podcast, I love that James Gunn, what he's doing at the DCU, is doing what Marvel used to do, where they find actors and they make them into stars. And you're like, Robert Downey Jr. is a big deal for Iron Man. Yes, but he wasn't as big of a deal. It wasn't like they signed Tom Cruise, right? There's always a talk Tom Cruise was in talks for Iron Man. They didn't. Robert Downey Jr. was the move, right? For Captain America, Chris Evans, yeah, he'd been in some stuff, but he wasn't the biggest deal on the planet. Chris Hemsworth was really not that big of a deal. So I'm saying they found these actors and elevated them. I mean, Robert Downey Jr., yes, he was a big deal, but, he had a lot of issues, and that kind of put him back on the path of success to put him where he's at today. And so I think that's fun back in the days when Marvel would kind of take somebody who was on the up, or even just find somebody and make them a big deal. I mean, hell, Chris Pratt, his biggest role before Guardians of the Galaxy was the Lego movie. That was probably his biggest deal. And then 6 months later, Guardians of the Galaxy comes out. A year later, Jurassic World comes out. Now we're off to the races, right? And Chris Pratt's made a bunch of big movies in his career. And so I think going back to the Gunn thing, I like that it's the system Gunn's using. I really do. But the problem is, let's say Batman Part 2 comes out. It's a major success. That's borderline a guarantee. Everybody loves Robert Pattinson as Batman, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, hey, we know you love this, but Pattinson is not going to be the main DCU Batman. It is going to be somebody else. If you say, hey, it's, I think his name's Paul Kelly, the guy from the JFK Jr. show. If you said, hey, it's him, I'm excited. I think he would be a great Batman. He's got the look to be Bruce Wayne. Would love it. I love taking a new actor and elevating him. It's really cool we're giving him a shot to be Batman. But I'm going to be really honest. Does the general audience go, hold the phone. We just went from Robert Pattinson, and you want me to roll up to this guy? Who's this guy? It just doesn't have the motion that you need. And I'm a strict believer in the fact that Superman, it's always better if a nobody plays Superman, and then you're like, oh, that guy's Superman. I don't really like it if Matt Damon's Superman. It just doesn't work for me. I'm glad they went for David Cornsweet. Nobody was like, oh, it's David Cornsweet. They're like, oh, that guy's Superman. And I like that. For Batman, he can be somebody famous. It doesn't matter. Because he's Bruce Wayne. Bruce Wayne needs to have this vibe around him that he is a famous person. And so it works for me if Batman is already a big deal. And I think I'm building up to say, if they're really going to do a different Batman in the DCU, it should be Elordi. I think he would be excellent. I mean, he's tall and imposing. It's obvious. I mean, the dude's like 6'5". He's huge. But he would have the... Imagine being like, hey, it's not Pattinson, but it's Jacob Elordi. Everybody's like, oh. I thought I was out. You pulled me back in. Like that, people would be more interested again. And so I think that would be a great move for DC. As the days go by, though, the more and more I believe they're going to roll the Pattinson stuff into the DCU. I really do. I'm just starting to get that vibe. I think it's interesting that Batman's not showing up in Clayface, but yet it's more of a darker film. The more and more stuff we hear, the more and more I'm like, are we sure they're not just going to do a Batman, like the Batman in the DCU? I'm just saying. I'm just getting the vibe. Just telling you. But back to the Elordi piece. The thing is with him right now is he's made a lot of interesting movies. And I think you look at the problem with him is he hasn't had a lot of big movies in theaters. Saltburn took off, but that was a streaming movie. Then Priscilla wasn't massive, but it's also a streaming movie. So, but there was some motion on Priscilla. Like some people watched it. It wasn't a huge hit, but it was known, right? And And then Frankenstein, what I would say was the movie that sold me on him, streaming movie. And I think a lot of people watched it. I think it has, like, people know of it. It actually does have some relevance. But it was a streaming movie. If that movie came out and made $350 million, it'd be like, oh, whoa, nice job. Hell, even like maybe 250 would even be like a nice number. But to not have any box office on that really blows for him. The big one, though, is the fact that Wuthering Heights made a lot of money. And I don't know if I'll ever watch that. I don't think I have any interest. But once again, part of it's Margot Robbie, right? Obviously a massive star. But him being the co-star of that and being like, look at the juice this kid's got. Look how much money this made. That's big. That means something. And so I'm interested to see if The Dog Stars does at least decent, because that movie's good. It does decent. People watch it. Even if it makes like, if that could make like a Ridley Scott movie that's just like a movie. It's not. I don't think it's based off anything. And even if it is, it's not like super well known. If that does well, it's like, whoa, nice job. But the big thing for him is he needs his Dune, right? He needs his big franchise that makes boatloads of money, that his picture is everywhere as. That's the nice thing with Chalamet. He got Dune at the perfect time. Dune 1, it's like, this Chalamet kid's going to be a star one day. And by the time Dune Part 2 came out, he was a star. And by the time Dune Part 3 comes out, he might be the star. Like, he might be the biggest actor in Hollywood at the moment. And now you're like, Ryan, that's a bit much. Are we sure? I mean, I'm being fully serious. I really think by the time Dune Part 3 comes out, we might be like, oh yeah, this is the biggest star in Hollywood. I know it might be wild, but I'm being serious. I think there's a real chance. If that movie makes $1 billion, and it comes out the same weekend as Doomsday, and it makes $1 billion, and Timothée Chalamet is the lead, and he is as good as I think he's going to be, and the movie wins, like if that movie does The Return of the King, right, cleans up at the Oscars, Chalamet wins Best Leading, makes $1 billion, it is a massive success. If that happens, which isn't out of the question, then it's like, damn, that's the top dog. I think that's a real possibility. Elordi needs that, and I think it could be Batman, but what I actually think would be more fun. Well, not more fun. I don't know. Batman might be more fun. I'm not sure. Not sure what I feel. But there's been the rumor for a while now that Amazon would like him to be James Bond. If you asked me this a year ago, I'd have been like, hell no. Because I was a hater. But I've come full tilt on this guy. I've come back. And I actually think it would be excellent. Now, I know the argument is he's 6'5", so how's that do to Secret Agent? And I think that is an excellent point. But Denis Villeneuve is the guy directing James Bond. So it is borderline guaranteed to be great. I was very impressed with Amazon MGM with Project Hail Mary. That movie's great. And I believe that that shows Amazon running MGM has the ability to make excellent films, because Project Hail Mary is excellent, right? And I think that to me shows that they're going to care about movies in theaters, movie making a lot of money in theaters, good stuff. Very good signs for the next James Bond. I think Elordi as Bond would be very fun. Obviously, Bond is always a Britishman, except for once where he was played by an Aussie, so then there's that, because George Lazenby is Australian. So the precedent is set for an Australian to play James Bond, and Jacob Elordi is Australian. I think if you do that, I'm being serious, I think you just commit and you do Sydney Sweeney as either Moneypenny or like the Bond girl in the movie. And I know you're like, Ryan, really? No, I'm actually serious. I think it would be fun. I think it would just flat out be fun if it was him and Sydney Sweeney on a Bond poster, and it's directed by Denis Villeneuve. Like, a party was like, is this Instagram's James Bond movie? And it's like, well, the casting maybe, but also Denis Villeneuve directed it, and then it's probably awesome. And you're like, wait, what the hell? Like, Hannah Montana, best of both worlds. This is incredible. So I actually think it could be a massive success. And if you're like, how does a James Bond movie completely revitalize the brand and become a massive success? I'm like, my mom would go see that because it's a Denis Villeneuve James Bond movie. And then my sister would go see that because it's Jacob Elordi in a James Bond movie. And my buddies would go be like, yo, Sydney Sweeney, Jacob Elordi in this movie? I'll go see it. Like, I think that hits a lot of audiences and gets a lot of people back in on James Bond. And James Bond, in my opinion, hasn't really been super relevant since Skyfall. I think that's the last one that had a lot of motion. Spectre did not have a lot of motion. No Time to Die did not have a lot of motion. And if Denis Villeneuve is going to make a great Bond film, which I'm 100% sure he will, I think Elordi would be a really great choice. And I think it would be really fun for him, for that to be his franchise, it became his thing, where it's like, damn, we knew he was a movie star, but this was him taking a franchise, using it to both elevate himself and elevate the franchise, just like Chalamet did with Dune. That would be excellent for him. I would love to see that for him, and I think that would be really fun. Batman would also be great. Cannot lie to you. Now, what's also interesting, and I want to pivot a little bit away from Elordi and just talk about the broader movies for a bit, because it seems like we're going to be getting the X-Men in the MCU, something that we all knew and I've talked about before in the podcast. It seems to be, though, that we're getting the X-Men in Secret Wars. I'm assuming not Doomsday, because I've already shot a lot of that. I'm assuming they're working on Secret Wars now, because Secret Wars is going to come out in May of 27, which means they could probably be filming that during this summer and still have it out by next May. And I mean, I've talked at length about I've talked so much about Doomsday. And I know that if, for those of you that don't tune in a lot, you might be like, "Oh, that means he's excited." I don't know how whatever. I'm gonna see it. We all know this. I hope it's good. I'm just kind of petrified, but whatever. I think it's a wild move to introduce your new X-Men lineup while killing off the old X-Men lineup, and also like saying goodbye to, like, I'm assuming this is it for like the Chris Evans, Chris Hemsworth, like the original era of the MCU, I'm assuming. Regardless, I think it's a bit wild, but I also see the way the executives are looking at it is, hey, this Secret Wars movie we project making at least $1 billion. What better way to introduce the X-Men than to put them in that? And then when they make an X-Men movie, everybody who went and saw that movie will go see it. I think that's the way they're looking at it. And Sadie Sink is borderline 100% Jean Grey, which I really like that casting. I think she's really great. I love her in Stranger Things. I think she'd be excellent. I'm a big fan. That does make it that all of your X-Men are probably going to be in that age range, though. So, like, your Cyclops has got to be, like, under 30 now. And I think it'd be, I mean, you want to talk about Elordi, right? Would he be an interesting Cyclops? Hell yeah. I actually think he could be a fun Cyclops. I think he's a little too big for the role, though. And I love Cyclops. I think if you make an X-Men movie, Cyclops and Jean are probably the main two characters. And Wolverine is more of a side character, but obviously gets his own solo film where he's a huge deal. And I think Elordi as Cyclops actually would be really interesting. I actually think that'd be really fun, but I think he's too big for the role. Now, if they're going to put the amount of emphasis on Cyclops and make him like one of the main characters of the entire MCU, fuck it, let's do it. let's make him Cyclops. But I find it hard to believe that he is going... I mean, in my world, Cyclops and Jean are the two main characters in an X-Men movie, and Wolverine's... like, I already said that. I don't know why I'm saying it again. But I think Elordi would be fun. I can't see him doing it. I really don't. And also, that's the Superman role, right? It's the, Cyclops is probably the closest character Marvel has to, well, Captain America, I'd say. But Cyclops is like a true blue hero with a bit of an edge to him. And I think it would be really fun if that was Elordi. But I find it hard to believe they would do that. I really do. But I would love it. I'd be here for it. I think I'd be a big fan. I think he's not going to do it. There's a rumor that the first X-Men film was going to be the original 5. Iceman, Angel, Jean Grey. Well, I guess you're Marvel Girl then, right? Cyclops and Beast. I actually hate that idea. I'm going to tell you that right now. I think that's dumb. I think you should start with the Chris Claremont team. I think it is way more fun. Like, way better. And I would start with the roster everybody wants, right? And you could genuinely do X-Men movies for a long-ass time. I've said for a while, after the MCU comes out of Secret Wars, they should literally build it Spider-Man, Wolverine, Black Panther, and X-Men movies. And Fantastic Four. Like, I don't think we need to do anything else. Like, literally nothing else. I mean, if you want to do a Blade movie, I'm here. Yeah, let's do it. Maybe Daredevil, I like that. But I'm saying, like, we don't need more Iron Man, Captain America, Thor. Like, X-Men and Spider-Man alone should carry you. There's enough X-Men stuff to be its own damn universe. You're not going to stop making Spider-Man movies for obvious reasons. A, they're great. B, it's Spider-Man. C, money. Which might also go with B. But regardless, I'm saying I think as far as the X-Men go, that's what I would do. I think it's what they're going to do. I think they're going to really focus on them. But Marvel likes to have their pillars, right? It was Captain America and Iron Man. And Thor was like third for the original MCU. And who's going to be the pillars post? And the Midnight Boys were talking about this on The Ringer. You guys know I watch a lot of The Ringer stuff, so we're talking about how for the next MCU saga, they imagine that Wolverine and Spider-Man are going to be probably the two main characters. And I think it's the right move. If you made Spider-Man, I think should be probably the main character of the MCU, and then along with an X-Men member. And so you kind of got to choose Cyclops or Wolverine. And I think Cyclops, while he should be a very big deal, I think Wolverine makes sense because it's Wolverine. I mean, when I was growing up, the biggest Marvel characters were, in order, Spider-Man, Wolverine, Hulk. Those are the big three. Those are the big three. And I'd love for them to make Hulk a big deal again. That'd be fun. I mean, I used to be a huge Hulk kid. When I was younger, Hulk was my favorite superhero, period. Period. I started liking Spider-Man, then it was him and Spider-Man, like my top two. And I like Batman too, don't get me wrong. I like Batman and Superman. But like Spider-Man and Hulk are like my two favorites. And I thought Wolverine was cool, but he wasn't, as much as the other ones. And, I mean, Hulk has lost so much motion. Hulk used to be the shit. Hulk has lost a lot of motion. And so I would love for them to bring Hulk back to being a top dog after Secret Wars. I think that'd be an important thing to do. I also think that building it around Spider-Man and Wolverine makes a lot of sense. Now, I've seen some fun casting for Wolverine, like Jack O'Connell from Sinners. That would be a fun casting for Wolverine. But I'm going to tell you something interesting. As much as I think Elordi's a better fit for Cyclops, what if they did him as Wolverine? He's 6'5", I hear you scream, and I think you're right. I mean, he's like a foot taller than you want Wolverine, and I 100% agree. And he's not Canadian, which neither was Hugh Jackman. Hugh Jackman, oddly enough, also Australian, like Elordi. I think physically, Elordi is a terrible Wolverine casting. Physically, it's terrible. Now, let's talk about his skills. What's he good at? Well, he's good at playing a guy that you believe could kill people with his bare hands. Got a little bit of edge to him. He's good at doing like sick bastard roles. Well, that's can't lie to you guys. He could do Wolverine, right? Does he look the part? Hell no. But he could do Wolverine. I'm not gonna lie to you. And if Marvel said, "Yo, Jake Elordi's Wolverine," every single person who read X-Men's comics is probably mad. But that Wolverine movie might have just gained an extra $200 million. Now that the Wolverine movie's gonna be a hit no matter what. Probably, but also you've got to sell the fact. It's similar to the Pattinson thing, right? You got to sell the fact that it's like, hey, it's not Hugh Jackman anymore. Okay, well, who is it? Oh, it's Jack O'Connell. Well, I like that. But is the general audience moved? Hell no. Hell no. But if it's like, hey, it's not Hugh Jackman anymore, but it's Jacob Elordi. Now, the thing is, with him being Bond, it's an easier deal. Less movies. You probably do one movie every 2 to 3 years. Hell, maybe even 3 to 4 years. You can still make other movies on the side. If he did Batman or Wolverine, that's pretty much all he's doing. Like, there's not a lot of room to make other movies. Really not. So I don't know if it makes the most sense for him. But at some point, he is going to get one of these big franchise roles, and I think he's going to absolutely kill it. I'm very interested to see what it is, because I think very highly of this guy. And he right now is the front runner for the 2026 Glen Powell My Guy Award. Jacob Elordi currently in the lead. And you're like, wow, that's because of a movie that came out last year. Yeah, you're right. It is because of Frankenstein. But it sat with me. And I actually might go out of my way to watch some of his movies that I have no interest in. Just because I think he's very good. And I'm a big fan. So that might be it for this one. I had a lot of thoughts to get off my chest. I think I got them all done. But yeah, the kid, he's a really good actor. I think he's really good, and I think we're in a fun era right now. We've got a lot of young actors and actresses that are really taking off. Obviously, the top two are clearly Chalamet and Zendaya. Like, we all know those are the top two. I think Holland is in an interesting point in his career. Because there's a chance we wrap up this year and we go, yo, Tom Holland, back in business. Because there's a chance that the highest grossing film of the year, I actually would probably bet on that being the highest grossing film of the year. I think I've said it before. I think Spider-Man Brand New Day is going to make $2 billion. And only like 4 movies have ever done that. I think it will. I think it's got that much juice. And you're like, well, it's got to be excellent to do that. I think it's going to be excellent. And I think for him to be the lead of a Spider-Man movie, because the other movies that have made $2 billion are Avatar and Avengers. I think those are the only four they've ever done it. I think it's Infinity War, Endgame, and then Avatar 1 and 2. And I'm saying if Holland can make $2 billion as Spider-Man, you're like, dude, it's Spider-Man. Yeah, you're right. But if let's think like a studio exec, right? You look at the $2 billion movies, it's a movie where everybody's covered in CGI, the Avatar films. So you're not really going to give a lot of credit to the stars. And then you're going to look at the Avengers, and you go, that's a team movie. It's a lot of big actors. Spider-Man Brand New Day, the biggest there is a lead. There is one main role. And his face is on the screen a lot. Well, kind of in a mask, but you know what I mean. And that's Tom Holland. So if he can make $2 billion of that, then be in the Odyssey, which I think might make $1 billion too, and might most likely will get Best Picture nominations and awards. I find it hard to believe the Odyssey is going to win Best Picture. It's kind of like going back to back in the finals. You know, the thing with it will be, right? Let's say the Odyssey is best movie of the year. Okay, let's just imagine a world where the Odyssey is the best movie of the year. It's better than Dune Part 3. It's better than, every movie. It's the best movie. Okay. Odyssey, it's at the awards. At what point in the awards cycle does but is it better than Oppenheimer conversation come up? Like, is that a January conversation? Is that like a week for the Oscars come up? Either way, at some point that becomes a part of the discourse. And unless it's definitively yes, it deadass might not win Best Picture because of that. Like, that is reality. And I know that's crazy, but that is the truth. That is legitimate. It is like Nikola Jokic winning an MVP. Well, was it better than last year? It's like, well, why does it matter? He's the best guy this year. It's like, no, was it better than last year? I think you're already starting to see that conversation with Shea in the MVP this year. I think Shea's going to win the MVP for the 2026 NBA season. I've already talked about this to you because you've heard that podcast already. I haven't recorded that yet, but it will. This is weird, but you know what I mean. Anyways, so I'm saying, you look at it, and that'll be the part of the conversation, which is just funny. Holland's apparently going to be in a movie where it's about like race car. It's like a true story of these I think they're NASCAR drivers that were also like criminals on the side that like funded their careers through criminal activities. Sounds like a book my mom would read. Sounds really cool, honestly. I think it's him and Butler, I want to say. I think it's him and Butler. And that could be really interesting. So I'm interested to see what goes on over there as far as Holland's career. But there's a chance we look at the end of this year and we go, Tom Holland made $2 billion and got to go to every award show at the Odyssey, and there's a chance it wins. Like, let's say it's Best Movie of the Year, wins Best Picture, right? And he's in it, and it's like, shit. Well, yeah, Chalamet had Dune Part 2, but it didn't win. Sorry, Dune Part 3, but it didn't win Best Picture. It made $1 billion, not $2 billion, like Spider-Man. Like, there'd be we're not going to say Holland's better than Chalamet, but Chalamet would come out probably the biggest winner of the year. So, shout out to him. So that's really it. I think it'll be interesting to see what goes on, as always. You guys know I love the movie game, seeing what rises, what falls, what's successful, what's not. Yeah, I mean, you think about the path is for Elordi to be Chalamet, though. That's what he's missing. He's got the in with the big directors. The big directors want to work with him. That's great. It's what you need. You got to have those top-level directors wanting to work with you. It's huge. He's got that. He's making movies that people go see, right? Wuthering Heights made a lot of money. Hopefully Dog Stars is good and makes money. Now, what's that big franchise that puts your face everywhere? Wolverine and Batman are in talks. James Bond. Those are kind of the big three. And you're like, holy shit, those are like maybe 3 of the 10 biggest pop culture heroes. And it's like, yeah, well, I think the dude's really good. So, all right, that's it from me. If you listen to all this, I appreciate it. Thank you.